on this Thanksgiving.
Very important. We appreciate their sacrifice, and we appreciate the sacrifice of their families for being away from their loved ones on this Thanksgiving Day. Benjamin Hall, thank you so much.
Staying overseas, arson is suspected after several massive fires have broken out all across Israel. Now, 4 Palestinians, possibly connected to themselves or perhaps even a terror cell, are in custody. The flames have been fueled by strong winds, forcing thousands to abandon their homes, and you can see those fires still burning out of control. John Huddy, live from Jerusalem, with what officials are saying about the cause. John?
Yeah, well, earlier this afternoon and evening, Leland, officials were saying that they were investigating all possible causes, including arson. Well, now they're focusing more and more on arson as the cause of some, if not all, of these fires, not only the ones that are raging this hour in the city of Haifa. In fact, some politicians and security officials are going so far, Leland, as calling this the arson intifada. And the reason being is that the growing belief at this point is that Palestinian suspects may be lighting these fires, taking advantage of the dry and windy conditions that we've had all week. Several of these fires erupted at the same time in different parts of Haifa this afternoon. And you know, obviously, that's the concern, is that suspects are doing this in a coordinated effort. Having said that, though, security officials don't believe that this is the work of a larger group such as Hamas or Hezbollah. But again, the working assumption is that these are all acts of arson. Not only the fires burning in Haifa, where some 60,000 people have already been evacuated from homes and buildings there, some of those buildings going up in flames, but also some of the fires here in Jerusalem as well, Leland.
So difficult to track these groups if they're disparate attacks. John Huddy, live in Jerusalem, where it is already Thanksgiving night. Thanks, John. Best to you and the crew. Arthel?
Definitely.
Thanks, Leland.
Well, all right, John. And a surging U.S. dollar could end up complicating one of President-elect Donald Trump's key campaign promises. We're going to get into that with our next guest, so stick around for that report. The menu also includes roast beef, ham, shrimp, stuffing, and eggnog.
Eggnog, there you go.
Not spiced. Or spiked.
Right now, President-elect Donald Trump saying he's not taking a holiday from trying to put more Americans back to work. Mr. Trump tweeting just a few hours ago on this Thanksgiving, "I am working hard, even on Thanksgiving, trying to get Carrier AC, Carrier Air Conditioning Company, to stay in the United States, in Indiana. Making progress, according to the president-elect. We'll let you know soon." Let's bring in Marco Soriano, managing partner at the Soriano Group. Nice to see you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
You think about this, and we saw a lot of controversy after President-elect Trump talked about keeping Ford and taking credit for the Ford plant staying in Kentucky. And now he's talking about trying to keep Carrier Air in Indiana, something he campaigned heavily on. They were one of the companies he used to talk about on the stump. How much can the president-elect really do about this?
It's actually a very good move for a president to start approaching the CEOs, the chairmen, and the boards in all these different companies, because they mean a lot. Whether they're going to go into that direction depends, but we do know that his infrastructural plan has to do with rebuilding the U.S., and these are companies that play a very strong role in that plan.
But what can a president-elect offer other than calling up and saying, all right, Mr. CEO, I really want you to stay in America? The laws are the laws. At least right now, the tax structure is the tax structure. Other than saying, I'm going to go after you on Twitter, what carrots does he have, if you will, to offer?
That's a very great question, because what we're looking into his actual plan is the tax incentives and the private equity that will go into this infrastructural plan. So I think his conversations with these CEOs have to be about tax incentives at this point.
All right, so sort of essentially saying, hey, look, don't move yet. I'm going to help you stick around. Coming in a couple of months, I have new tax plans coming, and when you do, maybe I'll say nice things about you on Twitter, and hopefully people will buy more Carrier air conditioning. Is that sort of the way the sales pitch goes?
Not exactly a couple of months. I think we have to be very realistic about that. The last time we had a tax reform, it took about 6 months, and it can go up to 5 years. So he has to be very realistic and proactive on this approach.
Kind of like building a building. It sometimes takes a while. The one thing that we've seen that hasn't taken a while is the market reaction to Mr. Trump's election. And now all of a sudden we've got the Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500 record highs. Everybody thought that if Trump was elected, things were going to just go in the tank. Hasn't been the case. That's all well and good. What's that mean coming forward into the busiest shopping season of the year? All of a sudden consumers have enormous confidence?
That's one of the 3 metrics that you would have to take into account. One is the supply and demand approach, the sentiment and psychological approach, and then the technical factors, when the GDP data comes out, and any other type of metrics.
But still, if you're at home and your 401k is doing really well, it may be you may feel better about buying a new television, you may feel better about buying new clothes, more Christmas presents, all those kinds of things.
Perhaps.
Fair.
I mean, that's the psyche part of consumption, right? Which is one of the 3 metrics that I mentioned. So depends.
All right. Well, now we'll go to the economic factors. The other part of the post-Trump election economic reaction, if you will, has been a very strong U.S. dollar, which it's kind of hard to break down the effects quickly. But essentially, it's great for U.S. companies that want to buy things from overseas. Goods from China are now cheaper than ever. But if for American companies that want to export things, those goods are now a lot more expensive.
You have to look at this from a trading perspective as well. So when consumption happens elsewhere, let's say we start exporting our goods and our services, they want to pay with U.S. dollars, and they want to return in U.S. dollars. It's the opposite. So if we start importing more, if our dollar is weak, they're going to start cashing in those bonds, those corporate bonds, so that they get paid in their own currency, because their dollar is worth nothing. So this is great. Strong dollar is actually a good move.
Strong dollar, and also it sort of has an effect, at least to your point, a psychological effect about what it says about the United States. All right, appreciate you being here. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, Marco.
An honor and a pleasure, as always.
Good to see you. Arthel?
Okay, Marco and Leland. Well, President-elect Trump naming a strong advocate for school reform to his cabinet. What lessons can we learn from Mr. Trump's choice for Education Secretary? Plus, the puns were flying, even if 2 fortunate birds were not, as President Obama performed one of his last acts in office. We're going to tell you all about the turkeys the president spared from the dinner table. Oh, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And you could say these two turkeys are some lucky ducks this Thanksgiving. Just beware, no shortage of poultry attempts at humor yesterday as President Obama performed the final turkey pardon of his presidency, sparing the birds named Tater and Tot as part of an annual tradition. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen is live from the White House with more. Happy Thanksgiving, turkey.
And to you, Arthel and Leland, greetings from the White House, where, as you say, President Obama yesterday participated in his final turkey pardon event here, and where he also made it abundantly clear he was determined to leave no pun unturned. In a 9-minute ceremony in the Rose Garden yesterday, Mr. Obama conferred clemency on Tater and Tot, two 40-pound turkeys raised in Iowa and named by school children in the Hawkeye State. Presidential daughters Sasha and Malia, whose eye-rolling at their dad's jokes came to be an integral ingredient in this annual event, skipped yesterday's. But Mr. Obama signaled that his departure from the presidency will not mean a reprieve for his daughters from this holiday tradition.
What I haven't told them yet is that we are going to do this every year from now on. No cameras, just us, every year. No way I'm cutting this habit cold turkey.
The president's jokes were objectively awful this year, complete with references to riding the gravy train to freedom and the sentiment, yes, we cran. But there were serious moments, as when the chief executive defended his economic record in office, and when he sought to summon our better angels after what he called this long campaign season.
We have to see ourselves in each other, because we've all got families we love, and we all have hopes for their better future. And we lose sight of that sometimes, and Thanksgiving is a good time for us to remember that. We have a lot more in common than divides us.
Indeed, and for those of you who want to know what becomes of Tater and Tot now that the president has spared them from the grisliest of fates, follow me on Twitter, @JamesRosenFNC, and right after this segment, I'll tweet out the next and final destination for Tater and Tot.
That's the way to get Twitter followers, I tell you. Listen, I don't blame Sasha Malia. I mean, come on. The president knows his jokes are just outright bad. Those puns are just bad, and he knows it. He knew it. He delivered it with that kind of tongue-in-cheek attitude there. All right, well, happy Thanksgiving to you, Mr. Rosen.
And to you, my friends. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
James Rosen, there you go. All right, President-elect Trump naming a strong advocate for school choice to his incoming cabinet. Obviously has to be confirmed by the Senate, choosing Betsy DeVos to become his Secretary of Education. Ms. DeVos issuing a statement on Twitter saying the status quo in education is not acceptable. Probably have a lot of people who would agree with her on that. Eric Schiffer, contributor to the Washington Times and Newsweek. Israel Ortega, senior writer for Opportunity Lives. Gentlemen, appreciate you being here. Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Before we get to this education pick, I want to pick up where we left off with Mario in the last segment. Mr. Trump had tweeted out this morning about trying to keep Carrier air conditioning, somebody who'd gone after on the stump here in the United States. Just a couple of hours later, on Thanksgiving, Carrier responding. Carrier has had discussions with the incoming administration, and we look forward to working together. Nothing to announce at this time. Wow, that does not exactly sound like the response you'd expect when the president-elect calls you out on Twitter, Israel.
No, but I think, look, President-elect Trump, though, is following through on a promise that he made on the campaign trail to make creating jobs and to try to convince companies to keep their manufacturing jobs here. And so I think at the very least he's trying and he's putting himself out there. And I think for that, I think a lot of Americans are going to be appreciative of the fact that President-elect Trump is actually doing this.
All right. On the other side of this, though, if all of a sudden he does this and talks about Carrier and says these things, but then Carrier makes its own decision, its board of directors has to do what's in the best interest of the shareholders and the employees and everybody else, but most importantly, the shareholders. That's their fiduciary responsibility. And all of a sudden he tweets about this and then fails even before he becomes president. What does that do?
Well, we'll see. I mean, because I don't think they're closing the door entirely. So I think this is part of, I think, President-elect Trump's promised to do more of this, and I think we'll see. Obviously, private sector has to consider what they need to do, as you point out. But I think the president has a bully pulpit. He's going to use it, and I think we'll see if more companies think about, and I think one of the big things is reforming the tax code is something tangible that President-elect Trump could work with Congress to do.
Right. Often said the real power of the presidency is the power of persuasion. Eric, to you on this now. We have this cabinet pick, Betsy DeVos, clearly aligned with Mr. Trump on a couple of key issues, whether it comes to being vouchers, school choice, those kinds of things. Someone who's not necessarily lock, stock, and barrel behind Common Core, but the Democrats have come out already and just eviscerated her.
Well, they have, and for, I think, obvious reasons. Look, I think what she wants to do, and I think what Trump wants to do, is to take the standard up. And Common Core, certainly they're not about Common Core, but they are about taking the standard up. And look, charter schools, in a lot of cases, are just a better situation for kids. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I think one of the biggest is they understand the children's ecosystem, where the public school is not even oriented that way. So there's a lot of challenges. We certainly still want to focus on the public schools, and we need to take care of our children there. But being able to give this option to parents, I think, is a great thing, and I think it's a wonderful thing to focus on improving education through this process.
Israel, why? Obviously, the Democrats are deeply entrenched with the teachers union. We know that. But is there another reason why school choice and teacher accountability is so scary to them and they find it so abhorrent?
It's about control. It ultimately comes down to control, and I think that they are worried that if charter schools continue to expand as the way that they have been for the last few years, that they're gonna have less control about a system that, frankly, works well for them. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well for students, and I think that's why I think that this pick is very aggressive. It's very bold, and I think, again, this is Donald Trump. Also, he talked about school choice during the campaign trail, and he's following through on this. And so I think it's going to be certainly questions are going to be very hard for Betsy DeVos in the confirmation hearing, but ultimately I expect her to get confirmed.
Israel, you just picked up on the issue of confirmation hearing. Eric, we heard, obviously, when the Jeff Sessions pick for AG came out, this sort of outcry from Democrats and sort of a discussion of just how unpleasant confirmation could be. It doesn't seem like Ms. DeVos is going to face that type of scrutiny or that type of challenge, really. Would that be accurate?
I think it's accurate, Leland. I think that, most people, certainly the Republicans, are going to be for it, and I think many Democrats, I think, are becoming more open to this argument, certainly of raising the standards, and certainly open to the argument of charter schools. You have certain congressmen that like it. And so I would imagine that Israel's right. I think she's going to get through, and I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing for education, most importantly for kids, and that's what matters.
How much can really be changed when it comes to school choice, when it comes to vouchers, when it comes to accountability at the federal level? How much can the Department of Education really change this, or does this have to go down to the state and school board level, Israel?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, Leland. I think certainly the Secretary of Education can also just get out of the way and frankly allow the states to do what they need to do. But I can tell you, too, that I've been talking to education reform advocates, and they tell me that one of the things that they'll be pushing for is increased funding for charter schools. And certainly that's something that Betsy DeVos has been very supportive in the past. And so that's something very, very concrete, very specific that she could do if she is the next Secretary of Education.
Well, and if she is, we'll see if she does it. Eric, Israel, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right, all the best. Arthel?
Okay, Leland, remember when someone thought it would be a good idea to take a sledgehammer to President-elect Trump's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Mr. Trump, as you know, was still a candidate at the time. Well, now we have an update on that vandalized Trump star. Yeah. Plus, you just might want to think twice about having that glass of wine with dinner tonight. No. Why? Why? Well, our next guest says it could be a drink or two, or 3 or 4. Could be crucial to your health. So back off.
But I'm sitting now at the bar. I'm getting drunk. I'm feeling mellow.
And on this Thanksgiving, we have some new information for you. President-elect Donald Trump's celebrity status has been restored. Here's why. His star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame is back less than a month after a man vandalized it. James Otis was arrested after admitting he used a sledgehammer and an axe to destroy the star. You see the end result there. It took a couple of weeks, but workers have finally fixed the star. It was first awarded to the president-elect back in 2007.
Okay, all is in order on the Hollywood Walk of Fame again. All right, have you heard how a drink a day could keep the doctor away? Well, now new research seems to be proving that. Experts saying that drinking the right amount could prevent a stroke, but drinking too much could trigger one. Joining us now, Dr. Ernest Patty. He's here, senior attending physician of emergency of medicine at St. Barnabas Hospital. And Dr. Patty, you know, hi, first of all, and happy Thanksgiving. Good to see you. While we're talking about this, anybody who is watching, they're probably, well, I shouldn't say probably, many people are drinking. So if they are drinking, partaking, how much is too much, Dr. Patty?
Well, the exciting news was they discovered that if you had 1 to 2 drinks a day, it decreased your risk for ischemic stroke, which is a big problem in the United States. The problem is, though, so don't rush right to the bottle, because if you drink 3 or 4 more than 4 glasses a day, now you actually flip it the other way and increase your risk for stroke.
Okay, I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to guess, and does it have something to do with constricting the blood vessels?
What they really think it has to do with is affecting a protein in your blood called fibrinogen, which helps form blood clots. And so their theory is that this small amounts of alcohol will decrease that accumulation of fibrinogen. The problem is, you know, if you don't drink already, I wouldn't rush to start drinking every day, because you still need to do more research on this. You know, the jury's still out as if this is going to be a long-term effect. So
just to recap, so if you drink, what's okay to drink? How much?
They said 1 to 2 drinks a day.
A day.
A day.
And we're talking, does it matter if it's wine or whiskey? You know,
they weren't specific. They said 1 to 2 alcoholic drinks. You know, you also get the benefits from wine, red wine, you know, for cardiovascular health. So I'm assuming that wine would probably be a good first choice.
But Dr. Patty, I mean, of course, you know, we're talking about this because this is how we kick off the holidays, and, you know, some people, not everyone, like to have a glass of wine or two. But in terms of trying to prevent strokes, I would imagine that factors such as pre-existing medical conditions, your family history, DNA, your age, the part of the country you live in, and also your baseline stress level. All that would come into play.
Well, your baseline stress level. Also, what type of health are you in? You know, stroke is a big problem in the United States, and it's coupled very tightly with hypertension and poor cardiovascular health. So obviously, other things are going to decrease your risk for stroke, such as exercise, proper diet, proper sleep, you know, decreasing your stress level at work. All those things come into play. The exciting thing with this, though, was they were under the assumption that alcohol was not such a good thing for you. But in this limited study, it showed that 1 to 2 drinks would decrease stroke risk. The problem is people who then run and say, well, if 2 are good for me, I'm going to do 4. The converse was 4 or more actually flipped it the other way and increased your risk severely for embolic strokes and also for hemorrhagic stroke tremendously. So you have to be careful with the research and how you interpret it.
I'm glad you repeated that, because I was going to ask you again, because, you know, people are at home, everybody's busy, sort of cooking, half listening, and people are, you know, taking a sip of the sherry or whatever they're cooking with. I'm just assuming here. I mean, I can make assumptions on this particular story, but again, the takeaway is two drinks a day is okay. More than that, what happens?
More than that, it increases your risk of having a stroke, both hemorrhagic and or thromboembolic strokes.
And either way, a stroke is not good for the body
Either way,
at
they're
all.
both bad.
Okay.
So exercise, everything in moderation, like we always talk about, you know, and enjoy a family day with your loved ones today.
Dr. Ernest Patty, happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for bringing your beautiful niece, did you say?
Niece Gianna, yes,
gorgeous.
She's here with
Hi,
me.
Gianna.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Have a great day.
Leland.
More proof that wine means God loves us. A powerful storm heading our way, triggering flash floods, intense enough, as you can see, to knock over lamp posts. We're going to tell you where this is happening, plus a major uptick in security at this year's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. We'll tell you what sparked it as we continue to honor those who protect us here and abroad.
Hello, I'm Staff Sergeant Kenny Allen with the 160th Sentinel Brigade in Camp Arajan, Kuwait. I just want to say happy Thanksgiving and a happy Iron Bowl to all my family and friends back home. I love you all, and I'll see you soon. War Eagle.
Right now, torrential rains in northern Italy. Take a look here, causing a burst of flash flooding. You can see the river overflowing into the streets, knocking over a lamppost there. A heavy rain has caused damage across the region, but thankfully, no reports of any deaths.
The NYPD leaving nothing to chance at this year's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade that just wrapped up. The department ramping up security after ISIS magazine called the event a, quote, excellent target, and dozens of dump trucks were filled with sand. That was just part of the many new security measures. Rob Schmidt, live from our New York City Plaza on 6th Avenue. Rob, we know you've covered this for a long time. Is it noticeably that there is more security out there as compared to last year's?
There's always a lot of security, Leland. This year it was in a different way. We'll talk about that here in a second. First of all, just a testament to New York efficiency. I love this city. The parade is still going on. It's still happening just to our south. It's already come through this area. Look at what's happening. Sanitation already coming through, cleaning up the streets. They're moving the red lights back into place. So just that fast, everything gets back in order here in New York after the parade does come through. Like I said, it's still going on near Macy's, closer to our south a little bit, south part of Midtown. The parade continues right now. And the difference in security that we really saw was as far as a vehicle threat. And that's because of what we saw in Nice, France on Bastille Day this year. That terrible attack with that truck mowing through that crowd, all of those people who lost their lives. That was a terrible story. This is a reaction to that. And basically, they have used those dump trucks, like you talked about, Leland, that are filled with sand, the same ones that we've seen outside Trump Tower, outside the campaign headquarters on election night. They've used those to create barricades through all the streets as this parade runs south for 2 miles through New York City. There's so many different ways that cars could get in here and do something like that. So that's been a reaction to that. We saw those trucks. We saw a lot of barricades go up, so there's no cross-town traffic in New York. But right now, though, we can tell you that the NYPD, as well as the mayor's office, saying there were no direct or credible threats to this parade. And as I said, it's come through here at this point, but it is still happening just to our south.
Well, you know, you think about this, Rob, what the NYPD is now dealing with. You have Trump Tower and the security now that is really going to become a northern White House that they have to protect. You have the Macy's Day Parade on Thanksgiving. Then you're going to have the NYPD getting ready for New Year's Eve and the events around Times Square. How are they changing their preparations dealing with all these large events?
Well, I just think that they've always had to be so prepared for things like this, Leland. I mean, this city has large events all the time, and I know that they have beefed up certain departments of the NYPD. We have counterterrorism. We have critical response. There's a number of ways that the NYPD is now prepared. It is the largest, most manned, and most funded department in the country. And like you said, they handle big things all the time. They handle the UN every year, which is just a huge security ordeal. Leaders from all over the world come here. We had the Pope last year. There's always something big happening in New York. And with the election just a couple of weeks ago, we had both candidates here in town. That was a major security detail. And actually, we got some details into just how high-tech the NYPD can be as well in a news conference last night. Let's listen to that.
We do have the radiation detectors. There'll be another, we'll have a helicopter up in the sky too. We have a downlink to see what's going on in the parade. So, and again, all of our police officers, each and every one of them are going to have a smartphone. And if there's any issues on the route, we'll be able to connect with the incident command post very quickly and deal with any issue as soon as it comes up.
And they are on it, and this has been a great parade so far this year. It's moved on from here, but so far so good. Leland, back to you.
New York's finest, New York's strongest behind you. Rob Schmidt, thanks so much. Happy Thanksgiving. Arthel.
Okay, Leland, new next hour of Happening Now. President-elect Trump spending this holiday weekend working on putting together his cabinet. We're going to talk about his choices when we come back. Stick around.
Well, happening now, it is a working holiday for President-elect Donald Trump as he juggles family time down in Palm Beach and has transitioned to the White House. It is a working Thanksgiving for us as well. Happy Thanksgiving to you. clearly color coordinated for the holiday.
It did indeed.
Hope the turkey is just about to go in the fryer, but before that, we got some news for you. I'm Leland Vittert, in for John Scott.
I'm Arthel Neville, in for Jenna Lee, and I'm glad you said fryer.
There you go.
Mr. Trump spending Thanksgiving at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, where he is working to fulfill some campaign promises. Peter Ducey live in Palm Beach, Florida, working as well. Happy Thanksgiving, Peter.
Happy Thanksgiving, Arthel. And just a few minutes ago, we got an update about how it's going with the president-elect's Thanksgiving Day project of trying to stop corporate inversion. He had tweeted a few hours ago this, quote, "I'm working hard even on Thanksgiving trying to get Carrier AC Company to stay in the U.S., Indiana. Making progress. We'll know soon." Well, now that company has responded to that message. They wrote this on Twitter, quote, "Carrier has had discussions with the incoming administration, and we look forward to working together. Nothing to announce at this time." Mr. Trump is also asking everybody in the country out there to work on something on their own, and that's uniting after what he acknowledges was a brutal campaign. In a Thanksgiving message, Mr. Trump says he knows that hurt feelings don't heal overnight, but that this holiday is a good time to try to start moving forward. As for which position he's going to fill as he moves forward in his cabinet, the two that people are going on the record about are Secretary of State and HUD Secretary. The Secretary of State position is really interesting because we got a tweet this morning from top advisor Kellyanne Conway where she wrote this, quote, "Kissinger and Schultz as Secretaries of State flew around the world less, counseled POTUS close to home more, and were loyal. Good checklist." Read into that what you will. As for HUD Secretary, Dr. Ben Carson says he's been offered that job in the administration, but despite a lengthy Facebook post where he hinted at why he thinks he'd be perfect for that job, and despite reports that he had accepted it, all he will really say now is this.
We did, in fact, have a discussion about things that needed to be done in this country and what the various options were. Whether I could do it from inside the government or outside the government.
There have been some reports, some buzz about others accepting different roles in the administration, but our latest guidance from the transition team is not to expect anything on the holiday. Arthel?
All right, Peter Ducey, thank you very much. Good background there you got for your office today, Mr. Ducey. Take care.
No announcements today, but possibly later this week, early next, as Mr. Trump continues to build his cabinet. A few names that are being tossed around. Billionaire Wilbur Ross, the investor known for restructuring failed companies, is reportedly being considered for Commerce Secretary. And Chicago Cubs co-owner Todd Ricketts is reportedly up for Deputy Secretary. Joining us now for more on this, Charlie Kirk, founder and executive director of Turning Point USA. Charlie, nice to have you with us. Happy Thanksgiving. Stick on the economic front here for a moment in terms of this tweet early this morning on Thanksgiving morning from President-elect Trump and now the response from Carrier. How much political capital is the president-elect risking here? Because if Carrier decides to move anyway, which they very well might, isn't there a pretty loud thud when that fails?
Could be. You know, I think it's quite interesting. We're starting to see the redefinition of the bully pulpit. President Trump is now using Twitter, which he can reach a lot more people than just releasing a press release, to put pressure on companies. And look, I think this is going to be part of his strategy to keep jobs here in the United States. Everyone knows how volatile stocks can be. I mean, with one tweet, President Trump could target a company that might be thinking about outsourcing jobs, and they might lose 10, 15%. And look, I know personally I'll think twice if I ever buy a Carrier air conditioner because of what they've done relocating jobs to Mexico, and I've heard the same all across the country. And look, you have to applaud President-elect Trump first for actually working on Thanksgiving and actually putting priorities to put American jobs first. And second, to say, I'm going to try to fulfill this campaign promise in every way I possibly can. And putting pressure through social media and behind the scenes is something he's heavily focused on to keep American jobs here.
You talked about reaching sort of a different audience through Twitter, and I know Turning Point focuses so much on millennials on college campuses where clearly Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by double digits. Does the Twitter conversation between President-elect Trump and the American people make a difference? Does that make inroads in that segment of the population?
Well, I think it's the tip of the spear because whatever he tweets then gets on network television. So, you know, if he puts a tweet out, then CNN, everyone, you guys cover it. And look, I think it's quite interesting to see how Donald Trump is redefining the way that he's going to advance his agenda. And he's starting to really show that he wants to put American jobs back here. And with Carrier air conditioning, he put that as a number one focus.
Charlie, when you talk to millennials, when you talk to college kids that you're trying to organize, what are the issues they care about? Are jobs number one as they think about coming out into the workforce?
Yes.
Or is it the social issues we keep always hearing that kids care about?
Well, look, it's jobs. And look, a lot of young people don't trust the government. They don't trust politicians. I think that's why the margin between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton with younger voters was a lot less than people anticipated. Hillary Clinton only won younger voters by about 22%. Barack Obama beat Mitt Romney by 30-plus points. And look, young people in particular want the government to work for them again. They see politicians getting richer. They see Washington, D.C. getting more powerful, and they don't feel like they're getting represented. And look, I think it's a good thing that the president is going to be use social media that young people live on to communicate directly with them. And look, that's not the only way he's going to communicate. Yeah.
So, Charlie, as you talk about the idea of connecting with younger voters and issues they care about and the government now working for younger voters, and then you look at the list of potential and current cabinet picks so far, Wilbur Ross, billionaire investor, Todd Ricketts, very successful owner of the Chicago Cubs. But then you think about Ben Carson. You think about a lot of Jeff Sessions, who's been in Washington for 20-plus years. These aren't exactly like wild outsiders that are going to really shake things up. Does that speak to what the younger generation wants?
I'll push back a little bit on that. I think Betsy DeVos, someone who's never held political office, someone who's been a champion of school choice and charter schools, is a phenomenal pick for Secretary of Education. Young people, especially under 30, believe that a zip code should not determine a child's future. She's going to be a phenomenal advocate. Wilbur Ross and Todd Ricketts, that's like a negotiation dream team. I think it's a good thing that the Trump administration is not just putting congressmen and senators in a very crucial role as a Commerce Secretary if those go through. Todd Ricketts and Wilbur Ross, they're not going to owe anyone anybody. They're going to negotiate of America's best interest.
Charlie, current Commerce Secretary is a billionaire hotel heiress, so I don't think you can really argue that there's only Congress. Hold on.
Wilbur Ross was self-made. Penny Pritzker a little bit different. I mean, you could make a big argument there.
Wilbur Ross, fair. Penny Pritzker, fair. But then we'll get back, to Ms. DeVos, who you wanted to talk about. Also a billionaire, comes from huge money back in Michigan, inherited all of it. I don't see, and then married some more of it, the old-fashioned way, I guess you could say, or both old-fashioned ways. How is that change? How is that new blood and different thinking?
Let's look at Arnie Duncan, who's the Secretary of Education, who came from Chicago, my home city, who is nothing but teacher union bought and did not really advocate for students, and Betsy DeVos, who will not owe anyone anything and will advocate for school choice and knows how to work with inner cities to create charter schools and to be able to expand opportunity. If you look at the charter school argument, it is widespread. It is very, very popular. And look, I know that a lot of people are trying to attack Wilbur Ross, Todd Ricketts, Betsy DeVos for kind of being this billionaire club. Personally, I believe it is a good thing that not just people that want to create political opportunism and create a career out of this are being put in cabinet positions, whereas Arnie Duncan and even you look at Castro from San Antonio was put in housing and urban development. It's nothing more. They were just trying to get him a higher elevated position and try to run for political office in the future. I do understand the argument, but these are specialists. Betsy DeVos knows how to create charter schools and expand opportunity. I think she's going to be a phenomenal pick. And same.
Charlie, how much influence does somebody like Betsy DeVos have, does the Secretary of Education have when it comes to mass education policy? Obviously, she would control the Department of Education, but does that really affect at the state and local level whether or not charter schools are allowed? She can't individually or unilaterally renegotiate union contracts. There's a lot that the Secretary of Education doesn't have control over when it comes to education.
That's correct. There's a lot she can do, and there's a lot she can't do. So she can't just write policy. She has to go through Congress with that. But she's going to have a very receptive ear in Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell that are going to want to expand opportunity scholarships. And that's a great way to look at it. And I think Donald Trump talked a lot about this, and I think that's why he overperformed with the African-American vote, particularly in Pennsylvania and Michigan. I mean, we have these failing schools that then create high rates of crime and an endless cycle of poverty. So what Betsy DeVos can do is, first and foremost, be an advocate for this, work with governors, work with state and local municipalities. She has said she wants to decentralize education, make it more local, put parents and teachers and parents and families back in charge of their educational options. And look, working with Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, Trump wants to expand that sort of choice. But there are limits, to your point, of what she can do without congressional consent and then also putting forth legislation.
Yeah, and then also looking down towards the states and local level as well. Charlie Kirk, great to see you on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All the best. Arthel?
All right, Leland, there is a new controversy brewing over the 2016 election results. Green Party nominee Jill Stein now pushing for a recount in 3 key battleground states that helped President-elect Donald Trump win. Rich Edson is live in Washington with the story. So, Rich, is the Stein campaign doing this to try to change the results in favor of Hillary Clinton?
Well, Arthel, her campaign denies this is an effort to deliver the White House to Hillary Clinton. The Stein campaign claims it is just trying to restore confidence in our voting system and says it's going to pay for recounts in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Stein supporters say they simply want to confirm the results of this election.
The experts are saying that there has been some hacking, and we really need to make sure that our vote is fair and accurate. So we're out here, asking for a hand recount here in Wisconsin. So it's not about the candidates, it's not about who's winning, it's about the integrity of our election, our democracy.
Though, if a recount awards those electoral votes to Clinton, she'd win the Electoral College. Clinton nor her aides have offered any public comment on the effort. The Stein campaign notes the deadline to file a request for a Wisconsin recount is tomorrow. Michigan and Pennsylvania's deadlines are next week. It says it has raised enough money, more than $3 million, to file the recount requests, though the Stein campaign adds attorney's fees could raise the cost to between $6 and $7 million, Arthel.
Rich, the young lady who was interviewed just a moment ago, she mentioned something about hacking. I mean, do we know if there's evidence of voter hacking?
Now, there is no evidence, though computer science experts say it is possible. Professor J. Alex Halderman of the University of Michigan writes in a Medium post, quote, "We've been pointing out for years that voting machines are computers, and they have reprogrammable software. So if attackers can modify that software by infecting the machines with malware, they can cause the machines to give any answer whatsoever." He says America's voting machines have serious cybersecurity issues, and the only way to know if hackers access those machines is a manual recount, though he adds the reason for the unexpected results in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. He figures it's likely incorrect polling instead of a hacked election. Arthel.
Rich Edson, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Leland.
Well, President Obama has a warning for President-elect Trump about what he sees as the single biggest threat to the U.S. during the next administration. If you can't figure it out from the video, it's this guy. It's not ISIS, not al-Qaeda. We'll tell you why coming up. Plus, how our government is trying to keep us safe from terror groups, waiting for the right time and place to attack this holiday season. And speaking of keeping us safe, how about a holiday shout-out from one of our brave heroes in uniform?
Hello, I am Lance Corporal Jefferson Lopez, an administration clerk with 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit. I want to wish all my friends and family back home in Long Island, New York, a very happy Thanksgiving from all the Marines and sailors with 31st MEU. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Eros.
I think what everybody agrees now, and this is also a bipartisan view, is that the North Korean nuclear program is moving forward at a pace that suggests for the next administration, and this was going to be true whoever won the election, it's probably reaching a point where you can't simply wait. You may have to take some further actions because there are going to be red lines that are crossed sooner rather than later.
Okay, that's Wall Street Journal's Jerry Seib talking yesterday on Happening Now about the growing threat of North Korea's nuclear program. Jerry's exclusive article this week tells how the White House is sending a warning to President-elect Trump on its view that North Korea and Kim Jong-un's rogue regime will be the top national security priority for the new administration. Also, that the U.S. will need to get more aggressive in the face of that threat. Let's bring in now Jason Beardsley, who served in counterterrorism in the U.S. Army. So good to have you here, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. I want to get your expertise, starting with this. How big of a threat is North Korea, and what kind of damage could North Korea cause?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. It's a very interesting problem, but we got to remember we didn't get here overnight. This is decades worth of policy that kind of led us to this position. It's failed bilateral talks. It's failed six-party talks. It's a strategic patience that the Obama administration took, which is another way of saying we're just not going to engage on this problem. But it's not just Obama. This goes back through Presidents, Bush and President Clinton. Madeleine Albright famously, won nuclear or heavy water facilities for North Korea. So now we're at the precipice right before the handoff, and Admiral Mullen says, hey, this is going to be a big problem. It's just disingenuous at this late stage to say, hey, now this is going to be a problem. Is it a big problem? Yeah, absolutely. But we've watched North Korea advance their nuclear weaponization goals for decades. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, I don't think it is, that they're going to probably achieve those goals in the next presidential administration. Difficult problem. There's no easy solution here.
Well, I was just going to ask you, what do you think would be the best way to fight Kim Jong-un? I mean, disarm him, especially of any of those new capabilities you talked about? Or listen, somehow, I don't know, do you talk him off the ledge through talks with our intelligence or military leaders? Or, I mean, is there a more permanent fix to put him in his place?
Well, we do have to recognize that if there were a good solution or an easy solution, we would have seen this from the administration that wins the Nobel Peace Prize in the first 2 months. And instead, what we really need to do is probably dial back the rhetoric somewhat, huddle in our security teams, get the best and the brightest minds that are North Korea experts, sit down at the table and craft a policy with our best partners, find the best of the worst solutions, and then make sure we gain agreement with our collateral partners. The bilateral partnership with China is hugely important. So we've got to define what we're doing, but that shouldn't be done on the punditry. That shouldn't be done in front of the television. This has got to be done with some of our best and our brightest minds. And make no mistake, that's the consistency we see with the Trump administration. They're going to formulate their policy behind closed doors, and then they're going to come out into the public realm and kind of divulge what they're doing. But this is not an easy solution. They are on the path to achieving their goals. That probably, as you mentioned, talking with them is going to help somewhat. We don't know what their long-term interests are, so it's very important for us to find a way to get to the table with them and say, hey, what's their long-term strategic gain? They do have those. We just don't know what they are.
And Jason, you mentioned China as one of the countries you thought should be in on those talks as to how to handle North Korea. But what about China? Do you think you could get cooperation from China on this matter? And what about the other countries that are aiding Kim Jong-un with materials to build a nuclear arsenal, or with physical materials, if you will, or even financing?
Right.
I mean, how do you stop them?
Well, China's a huge part of the solution. So it does require an administration that is willing to engage in East Asia. Remember, we did the famous pivot to East Asia that never really came up with anything significant. So the next administration has got to be on the engagement path, talking with the leaders in China, talking with our East Asian partners, talking with Japan, talking with the neighbors in the region to say, how do we leverage your security agreements, your security cooperations successfully, so that we can together move forward and kind of keep North Korea from getting too far advanced in their.
Do you feel
right now they're having
optimistic?
difficulty with delivery.
Quickly before I go, do you feel optimistic, Jason?
Well, optimism with North Korea is a little bit of a stretch, but what I will say is they'll have a real politics solution in place. This is the best administration to do that, and I think we'll see some great dialogue in the next 4 years. But make no mistake, this is not a solvable problem in any simple respect. So,
okay.
Thank you.
You're right. Optimism, North Korea, oxymoron. Jason Beardsley, thank you so much. Good to talk to you. Take care.
You bet. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Well, thousands of people are evacuating their homes today as a late-season hurricane reaches Central America's Caribbean coast. We're tracking the storm from the Fox Extreme Weather Center. Plus, the busy and crowded holiday season tends to bring out terror threats and even some terror attacks. Remember the underwear bomber on Christmas Day? What's being done to keep our celebrations from being targeted in the future? And a Fox News extreme weather alert, thankfully not in the United States, but Hurricane Otto is making landfall in Nicaragua as a Category 2 storm. Good news for those down there. The eye is striking an area with a relatively low population. About 10,000 people have been evacuated ahead of the hurricane. See some of those folks heading out now. About 5,000 have been evacuated in neighboring Costa Rica, where a national emergency has been declared. And further south, 3 storm-related deaths have already been reported in Panama. So if you have friends or family down there for the holidays, check in. We're going to continue to follow Hurricane Otto as it makes its way onshore, bringing the very latest.
That 4 inmates in a California jail didn't want to spend Thanksgiving there. Investigators say 4 men cut through bars at a jail in San Jose, California, and they used sheets to rappel from a second-floor window. A deputy on patrol spotted the men trying to get away. 2 were recaptured. The others, take a look at your screen, these 2 right here, are still at large. They face weapons and false imprisonment charges. Police using K9 units and a thermal sensing helicopter in this search for these two fugitives seen on your screen. However, officials are asking the public to keep an eye out, but keep a safe distance if you do happen to spot these two men.
And on this Thanksgiving, new information on intelligence agencies saying terror groups are making a lot of noise, chatter, they say, about potential attacks during the U.S. holiday season all the way through Inauguration Day in January. They say anywhere a big crowd gathers could now be a risk, from airports to train and bus stations to the parades we see around the holidays. And don't forget your local shopping mall this time of year. They will be packed tomorrow. Steve Rogers, former member of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, retired lieutenant commander from the Office of Naval Intelligence. Happy Thanksgiving. It'd be nice if we had a Thanksgiving where we didn't have to talk about all this.
Well, but we could surely thank God that we have the equipment, the tools, the manpower to address these issues and prevent a terrorist attack. What I saw today in New York City, as I came here to your studio, an extraordinary amount of police manpower outside. Now, you couple that with the technology that this city has. Look what you had today, a beautiful parade, and people were protected.
Well, people were protected. Look out on 6th Avenue right now, live pictures now. They're just starting to clean up the Macy's Day Parade. And at one level, when you were out there, it looked almost like an armed camp as you walked around with officers with automatic weapons. And then the other thing that people saw, and this was new this year, was these dump trucks laden with sand to try and protect from cars or dump trucks, or for that matter, some kind of delivery truck, something like that, being turned into a weapon and being driven into the crowds like we saw in Nice, France. The question is, are we always planning for the last attack? Is it sort of that we're never, it doesn't seem as though we're ever looking forward. We're just putting in measures to prevent what's happened in the past.
Well, we're certainly doing that, but we're also putting measures in place from lessons learned from past attacks. I could tell you that, and boy, here's a shout out to the New York City Police Department and the police departments in the state of New Jersey, collaborating intelligence together, working together to set up strategic and tactical plans to address a possible terrorist attack. What you saw out there with the trucks, you didn't see the radiation equipment, a lot of dogs. And you know what's different? I noticed something very different from the past, was the immense amount of police officers out there, because human intelligence, the eyes of police officers who are trained to see what needs to be seen to prevent an attack. It was very extraordinary today.
So for a department like the NYPD that is well versed in this, they have their own counterterrorism department, and part of the department that deals with this, experts in this field. This is a light workout, a big parade or something like this. But all of a sudden you go to Oklahoma City or Farmington, Nebraska, insert name of town in middle America. Police departments aren't equipped to deal with this kind of thing. And you have situations where you have large crowds, be it at shopping malls on Black Friday, be it at holiday concerts and tree lighting ceremonies. Is it possible to protect everywhere all the time, or we have to accept a certain amount of risk this time of year?
You just identified the greatest concern of law enforcement practitioners nationwide. The city, well guarded. But what about these small towns? What about these malls? What about these civic activities taking place? A lot of training has to be done with local police departments in small departments in small cities. These police officers have to be as trained as NYPD officers are with regard to intelligence collection and information. And the key to that is, again, police manpower. Now, it's going to be costly, all right, very costly. But I think as the new administration takes power, you're going to see a lot more funding go to local police departments to prevent an attack even in those areas.
And see if we can't train them to be as aware and see things in the same way the NYPD does. Quickly, want to get to this time of year specifically, and we say that terrorists look towards the holidays. Well, in fact, they've tried attacks during the holidays. You think about the underwear bomber on Christmas Day, the shoe bomber, also a few days before Christmas there. Video from 2009 Christmas Day when the underwear bomber was thwarted. The plane landed at Detroit. It also combines the busiest travel time of the year as well. Is it possible for the TSA and those groups to be able to stop whatever's next from the terrorists, or is it sort of this cat and mouse game they're playing?
You could never prevent every single attempted terrorist attack, but I'll tell you what a key factor is, and we've said it here on Fox many times. If you see something, say something. We have to work together as citizens of this country and as professional law enforcement practitioners. We work together, we prevent a terrorist attack.
Well, we saw that both during the underwear bomber and the shoe bomber. It was the passengers on the plane that prevented it.
Well, you're right. It wasn't technology.
Right, it wasn't.
It was the people. So, you know what? We could thank God that we have a resilient nation and that when it comes to terrorism, we're all going to come together and we're going to beat them before they beat us.
Well, a thankful and hopeful message this Thanksgiving. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much, and thank the good Lord.
For sure. All the best. Arthel?
Thanks, Steve. Leland, okay, well, law enforcement, meanwhile, also on high alert to protect themselves. This after a spate of police shootings, a San Antonio officer fatally shot right outside police headquarters. How can law enforcement curtail the violence? Plus, a Tennessee community reeling after that deadly school bus crash. There's new information on the driver now facing multiple charges. Our legal panel is on deck with this story.
Welcome back on this Thanksgiving. Hope you're getting ready to enjoy some turkey. And think about this. Police officers now face a growing threat this holiday season after 4 of their own were shot just in the past week. In several of those incidences, the police were targeted. That includes San Antonio, where Detective Benjamin Marconi, a 20-year veteran of the force, was killed in what officials call an ambush. And after another deadly shooting of an officer in Detroit Tuesday, 59 officers have been killed in the line of duty this year. Caroline Shively live in Washington with more on what is in every way a sad story.
Absolutely, Leland. Those 59 deaths mark a staggering 74% increase in gunfire deaths of police officers over last year. That's according to the Officer Down Memorial page. A total of 131 have died in the line of duty this year, up 13% compared to 2015. Officer Colin Rose is the face behind that latest statistics. He was a Wayne State University police officer working near Detroit. Witnesses say he was shot Tuesday night while trying to handcuff a witness nearby campus. Police say the suspect shot him in the head. Rose died of his injuries last night. Officers came out in force to support his fiancée and loved ones. 40 emergency vehicles accompanied him from a Detroit hospital to the medical examiner's office. A man has been arrested in that case who had previously served time for assaulting a police officer. The International Association of Chiefs of Police say they are reaching out to individual communities, but something needs to be done on a wider level. The association is setting up a task force for violence against police officers. They're also asking for help from the new administration.
We're hoping that a real good look by the president-elect and his team by putting together a National Criminal Justice Commission might be one of the answers we need to look at a holistic approach for once.
Ambush killings of police are also up, like we saw over the weekend, like you mentioned, with Detective Marconi shot in the head while riding a ticket in his patrol car. There have been 20 fatal ambush shootings of police this year. That's the most since 1995. Leland, back to you.
Sad statistic. Caroline Shively in Washington. Thanks so much, Caroline. Arthel?
All right, Leland, toxicology reports show the driver in that deadly Tennessee school bus crash had no alcohol or drugs in his system at the time of the crash. 24-year-old John Anthony Walker is charged with vehicular homicide, reckless driving, and reckless endangerment. The NTSB also revealing that he was not driving on his designated route before the crash, instead taking a winding road where police say he was driving well above the posted 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now, the mother of one of the young victims is raising questions about the driver's mental stability. For more on this, let's bring in Wendy Patrick, veteran prosecutor and trial attorney, and Richard Roth, a defense attorney. And Wendy, I want to get right to it and start with you on this. The NTSB said they're going to be doing more further testing, checking for a longer list of drugs for the driver. What does that mean, and could the results possibly change the charges, prison time, or defense even?
Arthel, great questions. You know, our hearts go out to this small community as well as to the families of the victims. We've been in breaking news mode. We've been getting lots of reports from a lot of different places regarding where this driver was, what he said right before the crash, some of which have already been disputed. But now we're in black box mode. We're going to move into the phase where we're actually going to recover the data equipment that can shed light on the very critical moments right before this crash. That'll help us determine a couple of very important things. Speed matters. Why was the driver going so fast? Location matters. Why was he off his route? And you're right, while so far there's nothing to indicate a DUI, right, driving under the influence, we live in a day and age where there are other causes. We talk about the dreaded DWT, driving while texting, driving while tired. In other words, more facts and circumstance will come to light, which will in turn really drive what this person is going to be actually charged with.
Well, Richard, to Wendy's point, they're trying to, apparently this driver had a second job, a seasonal job with Amazon, so they're trying to determine if fatigue played a role in this horrible crash.
That's right, and Wendy's absolutely right. What they're doing now is going in this black box mode. Not only are they going to see look at the actual scientific evidence as to where it was, why it was, and how it was, but they'll also interview the children. Yes, the children were 6, 7, 8, and 9 years old, but they are witnesses, some of whom unfortunately are victims on a terrible pre-Thanksgiving tragedy, but they will actually interview these children and find out exactly what was going on, what they saw, what they heard. So right now we are in, you know, people don't know.
When would they interview the children? Did you just say they would interview the children? When would that happen?
Absolutely, because even though they're children, they are witnesses. They want to know what they were seeing, where they were going. They want to know if he said anything in advance. There's all kinds of information that they don't know, and a good investigator will actually talk to everyone. Whether or not the child has good information or not, they want to talk to the child, the children, and find out.
But I guess where I was going with that one, Richard, is that, you know, because they are children, I mean, is there a particular amount of time that they would have to wait to make sure that the children are able to handle these questions about that tragic day?
Absolutely. It's a balancing. On the one hand, you want to get that information right afterwards because it's immediate. On the other hand, you have to take into account the fact there's 6, 7, and 8-year-old children who have just gone through a very traumatic experience. So it's a balancing. And you also have to, after you interview them, you have to figure out, you know, what did they see and what do they think they saw. They have to sort of analyze it because they're not, you know, their brains are well developed, but they're still 6, 7, and 8 years old. And the fact that he was working at Amazon is another issue. Maybe he was, as Wendy said, tired and either driving while texting or driving while tired. These are all things that are going to start coming out in the investigation.
I want to play right now some sound from a sergeant there at the police department in Chattanooga. Listen, please.
The media is reporting claims that the driver asked the children on the bus if they were prepared to die. I want to be very clear on this. No witness we have spoken with has that information or provided it directly to our investigators. but we have also not interviewed all witnesses yet.
So, Wendy, if in fact after the police department there and NTSB and all the investigators collect all of their evidence, and if they find out that indeed that they get it directly from the source, which is reportedly the mother of who had 3 children on the bus, one of them who did not survive, unfortunately. But if, in fact, they can prove from the direct source that this driver said something to that effect, are you ready to die, to those children on that bus, is something like that, would it be admissible in court?
Arthel, yes, and that would be a whole different ball game. If that could be corroborated, no doubt, by some of the audio equipment, some of which might have been damaged in the crash, some of which hopefully was not, then we're into an area where motive matters, right? Right now he's charged with crimes that require an intent of recklessness. If we get into an intent of an intentional killing, then those charges could be elevated to murder. There's another court date on the 29th, and these are the kinds of things that investigators are looking at during this busy Thanksgiving holiday weekend for them. Because time is of the essence when you talk about criminal charges. And if they do find that higher mens rea, as we say in the criminal law, then you could very well see much more serious charges down the line.
Rich, I want to close with you on this one. So according to reports, this bus driver, he had been involved in another accident or an incident, sideswiping a Kia and causing roughly $400 in damage. This happened just 2 months ago, and also the bus driver has been arrested and charged with 5 counts of vehicular homicide. As we know, reckless driving, reckless endangerment. Here's the question. At what point could this investigation turn towards Durham School Services, the company the bus driver worked for?
Well, it actually has already turned toward that, because quite frankly, the fact that they were going after him for negligent homicide, negligence is, if you will, a tort, and there's actually been a civil case already commenced, as I understand it. But these are all the factors. For example, why was he on a path which he shouldn't have been on? Where did this mother hear these words from? The mother was not a witness, but either she made it up or someone told her that. So this is already, the Durham school system already, of which it most likely has tremendous insurance, is already in the thick of things. They're in the target here because they have a school bus driver who has a prior incident, although it's not a serious incident, and who, because of his driving, leave aside everything else, driving alone has resulted in 5, now 6 deaths. So this is a very, very serious matter for not only the driver and the entire school system.
Serious and unspeakably sad.
Terrible, Arthur.
Richard Roth, Wendy Patrick, sorry we had to see you on this day, on this so sad, such a sad story, but it's nice to see you nonetheless. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Happy Thanksgiving to you both.
You too.
You too.
Thanks, Wendy.
All right, there are some new security concerns now after the U.S. Navy says the personnel info of more than 130,000 sailors was hacked. How did it happen? Who's responsible? Coming up. Plus, just before Thanksgiving dinner, just before you're sitting down, a survey finding more than 1/3 of Americans are stressed out at the idea of talking politics during the family meal this Thanksgiving. I'm just stressed out because I'm really hungry. I want food. All right, coming up, a child psychologist with some tips on keeping the peace at the dinner table.